Are you tired of spending too much of your hard-earned money at the supermarket? Are you dreaming of farm fresh eggs, homegrown veggies, and homemade everything? Well, welcome to Ditch the Store, where we break free from supermarket dependence and take back control of our food and household essentials. I'm CJ, and I'm here to show you that life is too short for store-bought eggs. So let's get started. G'day everyone, and welcome to Ditch the Store. This is episode 161 and CJ on her own again today. As I said last week, I am batch recording, so I'm doing a whole bunch of recordings in one day, and Handy Helper is at work. Kids are not here. Yay, I have the house to myself. Today we are talking about something that is one of my favourite things as far as gardening goes. And I say all the time, I am not the greatest gardener in the world. My mother was an awesome gardener, is still an awesome gardener. And I don't think I ever got her green thumbs. I have had to learn and work hard at gardening pretty much my entire life. I kill plants fairly regularly. I've got a couple of plants that have managed to withstand my treatment, including one in our bedroom that's growing great guns that my lovely sister-in-law Kylie gave me. But normally I struggle with gardening. These three I don't tend to struggle with. These three I seem to have a really good crack at. Now, it could be because they are so easy to grow that anybody can do it. And I guess that's the important bit. If you are somebody who isn't great with growing, this might be a really good way to start. So it's the three favourites for me are potatoes, garlic and onion. Now, they're partially favourites because we use so many of them in our cooking here. Now, even though I tend to go a bit low carb, we still do love our spuds, and the kids definitely love their spuds. So potatoes are definitely high on that heat list, but garlic and onions, I don't think there's a dish I cook that doesn't include garlic and onions. So it's handy to have those on stock. And if you listened to episode 160 last week, which was on composting, you'll know that I am a big fan of just done is better than none. So that's exactly the same approach that I use when it comes to these particular plants. These three crops, to me, are genuinely some of the easiest and most satisfying things to grow. And depending on where you live, some of the things say don't put spuds in where I live because it's too cold, but I've always found that putting them in around March, April, I tend to get a really good crop by the time they come out of the ground at the end of winter. It does depend on the variety of potato, and I'm not going to go into that because that could be a whole episode on its own, but definitely we'll go through a few things about what type of potatoes you should be putting in and the right time to get them in the ground. But if you're in the northern parts of Australia, this is definitely the perfect time to be getting them in. We've already got some in, and I'm probably going to put a few more in, even though it is a bit late in the season. But garlic and onions definitely will grow over the winter months. So if you plant them now, you should have something by the end of winter, I would imagine. Anyway, as I said last week, if you are on social media and you want to do a shout out to me or send me a video of your garden or your compost, please do. I would be very, very glad to receive it. Rightio. Now, buying bulbs for potatoes, onions, onions rather, I tend to buy as seedlings. The seeds are very, very fiddly, and if you're very dedicated, you could get your seedlings up and running, no problems. I just find it easier to buy them in the seedling format. And that's partially because I'm not the greatest gardener in the world, but now is the time to get them in, and I like to get them established before any frosts hit, and we haven't had a frost yet, so fingers crossed, touch wood. We haven't had a frost yet. Let's get into it. Potatoes first, because they're probably my favourite. The first time I grew potatoes, I was really surprised. I thought I would be terrible at growing them, and when we started digging them up, I had no clue how many potatoes were under the ground. And we started digging, and it was like, holy shit, it just kept going. It was like, but there's more, but wait, there's more. It just continued on and on. And because everybody in our family likes potatoes, I really enjoy knowing that we're feeding the family something that they really like eating, and we've dug it out of the ground. And the kids enjoyed when they were little, not so much now maybe, but when they were little, they enjoyed helping that process of digging in the dirt and finding the spuds. And we had to do it. I wouldn't let them do it with a big fork kind of thing because I didn't want them to pierce any of the potatoes. So they had to pretty much get gloves on and just dig through until they found them all. So first things first, the eye of it. Potatoes grow from what's called seed potatoes. So seed potatoes, what you're looking for is potatoes that have what's called an eye, which is that little dimpled bit in the potato. But then from that dimpled bit, you will have some a shoot growing out of it. Now, sometimes shop bought ones that you've got, you'll have them sitting in a drawer too long, and they'll start to sprout and have those eyes start to grow. If that's the case, whack them in the ground. They will grow. But if you really want prolific amount of potatoes, then you're better off going and buying seed potatoes, or what they call seed potatoes. Now, each eye can grow into a new plant. So some people I've seen do, and I don't do it, I find it too fiddly, but some people will cut potatoes based on where the eyes are. So just say there's 4 eyes on a particular potato, they'll cut it into quarters and plant each of those quarters to make a whole new plant. And each eye can grow a whole new plant. So when you're choosing your seed potatoes, look for good ones where the sprout is starting to come up and they look nice and healthy. And with the supermarket ones, like I say, we chuck them in if they do go to sprout, but some supermarket varieties will be treated with things to prevent them from sprouting, which when you think about that, it's pretty off really, that your food's getting sprayed with something that'll stop it from sprouting. So if your supermarket ones are sprouting, that's probably a good thing. It probably means they haven't had an extra chemical added to them, but they can be unreliable. So even the ones that do sprout, if they've been up against ones that have been sprayed with this stuff to stop them sprouting, you won't always get great yields out of them. So that's why seed potatoes from a garden centre or produce store are a safer bet, because they haven't been treated and they've actually been, like they're designed to start that potato plant growing. Bred specifically for it. It's a bit like the eyes and browns of the chicken world. Seed potatoes are designed to actually get you a growing plant. So planting. A light cover first. To start with, when you put your spuds down, a nice big area of loamy soil that if you've listened to composting episode last week, you'll have beautiful, lovely composted soil, and you want to spread your spuds out. You don't want them too close together. I haven't written down on my little note here how far apart to do them, but you want to put them down about 10 centimetres, which isn't very much, and then cover them probably 5 to 8 centimetres of topsoil over the top of that. You want to pop them in the ground with the eye pointing up because you want to give it the best chances possible to get to that sunlight, which is what it's trying to do. Cover it with a light layer of soil. Sometimes I will put, instead of just soil, like I'll put soil, a little bit of soil over them, but sometimes you can put old straw, garden clippings, like grass clippings, if it's dried out and everything, over the top. Potatoes are one of those things where you layer them and you just keep layering on top. So as the plants shoot up through your straw, through your soil, you can then mulch down and put some more stuff on them to keep them growing. Because the more they shoot up and the more soil base you have at the bottom, the more potatoes you are going to get out of them. Now, I didn't believe that until I actually had a red hot crack at doing it that way. And I probably built it up over about a month. Every time the plants would show their little heads above, I would cover them again with some more straw and a bit more soil. And the yield we got that year was just phenomenal. It really did make a difference. So and I've got some notes here that I didn't read from just then, but I will just say when you mound up the soil around the stem, so the idea is that you keep putting stuff at the bottom of the plant, they call it hilling up. And that's how you get the biggest harvest. That's what I've got written here. And it's so true. It really, the more you put at the base and build up around it, the more you'll allow that plant to spread out, because its roots are it spreads out its roots, little tubers, and that's where the spuds grow off. So you want to give it as much coverage as you possibly can. It does sound counterintuitive to keep covering the plant, but believe me, it actually works. And you'll be so surprised when you dig the plant up and you've got, literally hundreds of spuds, and you're like, where'd they all come from? So you just keep building up, just light layers. You don't want to pack it down. You don't want to smother the plant. But every time you see the shoot of the plant coming up through, just pack a little bit more on. Let it grow a little bit, pack a bit more on. With watering, less is more. The spuds do not like a wet soil. They like it moist, but if it's too wet, they will rot. You'll lose your potatoes. So water when you plant, and then you can, depending on your rainfall situation, you can leave them alone to a degree. Maybe once a week, go over it with a quick hose, but I wouldn't have a sprinkler running all the time on it. It would just get too damp, and you'll overdo it without realising it. If you are getting decent autumn rains, you're probably not going to need to water at all. Honestly, I think that's why I love potatoes, growing them, because I am not the greatest gardener in the world, and I'm probably one of the lazier gardeners in the world. So not having to water them all the time is awesome for me. Now, if you don't have space, because obviously that sounds like you need a big garden bed to do it. If you don't have space and you don't have a garden bed, don't worry. Potatoes are one of those things that can actually grow really well in pots. So just chucking a couple of potatoes into a grower bag that you can sit on a veranda, and like I say, keep covering, start low in the bag, cover, straw, a bit more soil. Don't overwater because the bag will hold it in. Even old feed bags would work. And then as the plant keeps growing, you just keep piling it on and doing that hilling up and cover the base of it. And when you are finished, if you've done just a disposable feed bag, like a feed bag that you can recycle or that you can throw out, at the end when the plant is fully grown, and from memory it is when when all the flowers have come out on the potato and started to die, that's when it's time to dig it up. You can just slice the bag open and get your spuds out that way, and that's probably the easiest way to do it. And that's it for potatoes. So have a crack at those. If you reckon, if you're doing okay, send me a photo because I would love to see it. Next one is garlic. Oh, I love my garlic. It's like a superfood. Even with my carnivore leanings, I could never not eat garlic. And garlic, again, is one of those crops that feels almost too easy. Now, some people would say, oh, no, it's really hard, blah, blah, blah. I've never had a problem growing garlic. Literally, you put cloves in the ground and you come back 8 months later to a full bulb, and it's awesome. Now, one thing, and I think I say it in here. Yeah, I do. I talk about it in a sec. So I'll go through my notes step by step instead of jumping ahead. So how do you do it? You break apart the bulb that you've got for growing into individual cloves. Don't plant the whole bulb. It's not going to work like that. Separate it into the individual cloves. So you might get 20 out of one bulb if it's a nice big one. And only do that just before planting, not weeks ahead. You don't want to dry them out. Just before you plant, each clove going into the ground should become a full bulb. So if you put 20 in, that's 20 bulbs of garlic. Now, we could probably easily grow 100 cloves and get 100 bulbs of garlic, given how much we go through. But play it by ear. You don't have to worry. If you've got too much garlic, somebody will always take it off your hands. Homegrown garlic is so good. Step 2, pointy end up. So the base of the clove, I like to think where the root was, should be pointing down, and the pointy bit pointing upwards. And then just gently cover it. Gently cover it with soil. Don't try and pack it down too much. You want it, and you only want it about 5 centimetres deep, because that pointy end is where the shoot is going to come out from, and you want it to be able to get up and through the soil surface and to get to the sunlight. So don't pack the soil down too hard on it. You can do them roughly 15 centimetres apart and 5 centimetres deep. You want to give them a little bit of room. I've stuffed it before where I put them too close to each other, and some cloves just didn't grow because they didn't have enough space to spread out. You want to make sure that that they can spread out as far as they like, because if they're too close to the next one, you'll end up with small bulbs. And what's the point of growing garlic if you're not growing huge, big ones? Size does matter, everyone. Step 4, soil. Garlic wants loose, like I said, not hard packed, well-fed soil with good drainage. It doesn't like sitting in the wet. Like potatoes, it will rot. So not compacted ground, not super wet ground. If your soil's really heavy clay, you should be adding some compost to try and lighten it up. If you don't have compost, even after listening to last week's episode, you can a bit of potting mix, something like that, something very loamy that's going to make the soil a bit lighter, and give it a good mix in before you try and plant your garlic. If you can get the soil to that point before you put your garlic in, you will have happy and healthy garlic plants. Now, this is the really important thing. This is the thing I was checking. I had on my notes to say before I went through. Buy proper seed garlic. Do not try and grow garlic from the garlic that you buy at the supermarket. Not always, but like the potato situation, supermarket garlic is sometimes treated to prevent it from sprouting, which again, it's another treatment on our food that I don't know that we need. But they do that so that you can't just grow it from supermarket garlic. And also some of the garlics that we get here in Australia are imported from overseas, and they're not always suitable for our climate. So, excuse me, yawning away. So, buy proper seed garlic. You'll be able to pick the variety that you like. There's a beautiful purple one that we've grown in the past, and I can never remember the name of it, but it is a really good garlic. And there's another one called White Elephant, and White Elephant it's huge, like it's the biggest bulbs I've ever seen, and we grew them and they were amazing. Like, honestly, we lived off them for about 6 months. So go to the nursery store or produce store and try and get seed garlic. It's always a better choice rather than trying to make do with the supermarket one, which you know, it's already treated. It's probably not going to grow the way you think. It's just not worth it. It's a waste of your time to do it. All right. So, onions. Onions are another one that I find really easy to grow. Some people don't. I don't grow it from seeds. I grow it from seedlings. The seedlings, the form that you'll get here in Australia anyway, is just very small, partially grown onion bulb. And you pop them in the ground and away they go. They're much easier to grow and beginner friendly than doing seeds. And that's what I say. I have tried to grow from seeds and yeah, they grow. I just don't think I can't separate them out well enough, kind of thing. I always end up with too many seeds in the one hole, and then there's too many onions close together and that kind of thing. So I would always say, if it's your first time growing onions, go for the seedlings rather than the seeds, just so that you understand what I mean. They're tiny, tiny seedlings, and it's sometimes very hard to separate them, and they get a bit lost in the mix, kind of thing. I've actually, and I've tried transplanting them from seedling, like seed raise, to a larger tray to space them out before I put them into the main vegetable garden, and that doesn't seem to work any better. So I would say just go straight for the seedlings and put them in as seedlings. Now, great for if you first time are growing your onions. If you are experienced and you want to try from seeds are definitely cheaper. It's the cheaper way to go. A whole packet of seeds would cost less than a tray of seedlings, and it's probably got about 5 times the amount in it. So if you are confident, go with the seeds. They take a bit longer, need a bit more attention early on. You may need to start them in a greenhouse or on the veranda, or at least in a sheltered spot so that, they can get a chance to grow, and then transplant them once they're big enough, which is totally doable, but just involves a few more steps. But if you're a beginner, or if you're somebody like me who's garden hand challenged, I would say go with the seedlings the first time. Now, I have got a little note here that I'll read from, because I'm still learning the ins and outs of so much of this stuff. Onions are triggered to form bulbs by the day length. So some varieties are bred for longer days and some are for shorter days. Now, I didn't know that until I was doing some more research. In Australia, you generally want short day or immediate varieties for autumn planting. So you actually have to go through and look at the different varieties and see whether or not they're going to be suitable for your climate and your area. You should be able to find them at the local nursery or produce or Bunnings store, because in Australia, most of those places will stock what sells in that area, what's appropriate for that area. And I would imagine it would be the same over in the US and the UK. Now, if you're buying locally, you're probably going to be fine. In Australia, you can buy onion, garlic and potato seedlings from interstate in certain states. Some states won't allow it, some states will, but always double check that it's going to be a variety that's going to be suitable to your climate, because what will grow in far north Queensland will not grow where I live. Absolutely won't grow there. So very important to check that the onion type, because there are so many different types. A good source would be Eden Seeds. If you're looking at seeds, go to Eden Seeds and have a look. They have all the different kinds of onions there, and you'll be able to see what one's going to suit your particular environment. And don't necessarily order from an overseas catalogue, because what works in the US may not work here in Australia. There's vastly different things going on there. Now, caring for those plants through winter. The really good thing that I like about these plants, and this is again part of the reason why I like growing them, is they are low maintenance. Through winter, they are minimal care. If you have a decent rainflow in your I'm lost for words for a second there. If you have a decent amount of rain landing in your area, you're probably not even going to need to water. But just checking them once a week is generally enough. With your potatoes, while those plants are just doing their little peak up and you're hilling up, there's a little bit of maintenance there. But honestly, every 3 to 4 days, you could go out and put a bit more compost, a bit more straw at the base of the plant over the space of a couple of weeks, and then you'd be set to go. So watering is the main one. All three crops are pretty drought tolerant once they're established. So once the plants are up and running, you don't need to keep the water up to them. They're root vegetables. They will rot if you cover them, if you soak them with too much water. Waterlogged soil, particularly for garlic, it'll inhibit them growing, but it'll also rot the plants. If you're getting a lot of rain, if you live in an area through autumn and winter, you get a lot of rain, then it's a good idea to check that the soil is actually draining enough. And if worse comes to worse, you can put a little bit of sandy kind of soil around them, just to try and help with that runoff. Sorry, got the coughs now. Weed control. Weed control will be your big enemy over winter, and that's because there are a lot of weeds that still grow over winter. It doesn't matter, even if there's frost, there's a lot of very frost-resistant weeds. But because you're not going out there in the garden so much, you won't be managing it as much. So the weeds can tend to take over. Now, they're going to compete for nutrients and water with the plants that you've got in. So that would set the crop back, and you don't want that. Mulching around the plants is a great idea during winter for a couple of reasons. It keeps the ground warmer to start with. It will keep moisture in if there's a dry spell. It'll stop other things getting into the soil, but it also will stop weeds from shooting up. Now, some weeds are pretty strong and pretty resilient and will still push through mulch, but for the most part, you can smother them with something. This year, I'm just about ready to shear goats here, and we have a couple of goats. Their wool is just not that great, and you know we have a terrible situation in one of our paddocks where there's lots of burrs. and it makes the wool very, very hard to clean and spin. So I am going to this year use them as garden bed dampers, basically, to stop, to go on top of the soil, to stop weeds coming up, but to keep the nutrients in. And also I saw an Irish lady using them to make paths in between her garden beds. She was putting the wool down and it suppresses all the weeds and grass so that she's got something to walk on without all the weeds and grass being in the way. So I'm going to give that a try. It pays to go out there and at least check every couple of, I would say you should be going out there probably once a week and checking, and just any weeds that you see that are coming through, just pull them out. It'll make a difference to the plants. Feeding with fertiliser. Now, as we said, if you listened to last week's composting episode, if you didn't, go back and listen to 160. We talked about composting. If your soil health is great, you shouldn't need a lot of fertiliser. Especially, root veggies, they're deep down into the ground. They're not utilising a lot of stuff from outside. Most of the growing is done under the ground. Because of that, if the soil is good, then the plants are going to grow just fine. If you really want to put some fertiliser down, I would say fertilise before you even put the plants in, but you can fertilise with a diluted sea salt, which is seaweed. It's a seaweed fertiliser, all natural, very good for plants, great for anything in the veggie garden. You can spray some of that around, dilute it and spray it on as a water. But I've got a little note here. Too much nitrogen, especially from high nitrogen fertilisers, can push leafy growth. At the expense of the bulb. So if you overfeed them, you can end up with this massive, beautiful, big plant and this tiny little bulb at the end. And that's why you don't want to overdo it with fertilisers. And that's, like I say, it's part of the reason why I love these plants, because I am the laziest gardener in the world. And, well, not quite, but close. And not having to fertilise is a win-win for me, because I still get a really good plant growing out of it. Can't really knock that back. So you just let them do their thing and don't worry too much about fertiliser. Like I say, unless the soil health was really poor, in which case, by all means, put some sea salt down. But I would have probably put the sea salt down before putting them in to try and get that soil health up to scratch before you planted. Now, some common mistakes. I have made lots of mistakes with my gardening over the years. Some of these I have made, some I haven't. Planting supermarket garlic. I always knew not to do this. I can remember my mum saying years ago, supermarket garlic is just not, it doesn't grow. There's no point putting it in. You see sometimes people go, oh yeah, just on TikTok you'll see people take like a carrot top and say, just plant the carrot top and a carrot will grow from it. That doesn't always happen. And it can happen, but it doesn't always happen. And certainly with garlic, supermarket bought garlic, it's not going to happen. So yeah, give that one a miss. But primarily not just because it's been treated, but because you don't know what variety of garlic you're getting. It could say you've got a large white. A large white may not mean the same thing to the people who are packaging it as what it means to a gardener. So what you think is a large white and going to grow in your area may not really be that. Oh, I've got the yawns all of a sudden. It may not actually be that. So spend the extra dollars. And garlic seeds are not cheap. My white elephants, I think I paid, oh God, and this is like 10 years ago or 8 years ago. I think I paid $10 a bulb for 3, so $30. And we would have got, oh God, I got sick of planting them in the end. There were so many. I didn't realise when I pulled all the cloves apart how many I actually had. There was probably 50 to 60 cloves that I put in the ground. And like I say, I was jack of it by the end of it. But we got so much garlic out of it. It was not funny. So spend the extra dollars on good quality seed garlic and you'll get a better result. And the best bit is, once you've grown those garlics, seed garlics, keep a couple of bulbs and use them to start your garlic growing for the next year. And you can, I'll I'll try and post up a video. I've got a picture of me. I plaited the garlics together and hung them to dry, and it actually looked really good. I looked like I had this beautiful, like, Italian kitchen, you know. Uh, Next one, another common mistake is poor soil prep. Um, that's why I said use sea salt before you put the plants in. I think ensuring that you have a loose, well-drained, compost-rich soil before you plant anything is vital. It just means that you don't have to keep adding things afterwards. You know that you're starting with a good base. It's the foundation of it. Once you've got that foundation right, then everything from there is easy. And 10 minutes prep on that soil before you start planting is going to make a huge difference down the track. So definitely get the soil turned over, get the compost in, any fertiliser like sea salt that you want to put in there, go ahead and put that in. And then even if you let it sit for a couple of days and then go out and do your planting, that should work perfectly. Now, I have stuffed that up before and had terrible soil and then not understood why nothing was growing properly. And it's because the nutrients isn't there. And a lot of garden, a lot of farmland has been drained of its nutrients. So it's a real task to build it back up again. And that's what I intend to do with our veggie garden, is build up that soil so that it is like everything grows in it. The last one I have definitely been guilty of, the first time I grew garlic, crowding your plants. I know it's tempting to squeeze more in, and I have certainly had to do it. Like I say, that year that I had like 50 or 60 bulbs, in the end, I had to put them close together because I kind of ran out of garden beds. And once I had them in too close together, not only are they competing for nutrients and sunlight and water and all the rest of it, but because they're up against each other, they actually produce smaller bulbs. And the same goes for potatoes. If you've got too many in there, they'll end up against each other and you end up with just a whole bunch of little potatoes, which, you know, you might like just having little potatoes, but it's nice to have bigger ones in case you want to do something else with them. So for garlic and onions, I would always recommend 15 centimetres apart. And seriously, 15 centimetres, take a ruler. I've got my little ruler here. Take a ruler out into the garden with you, because 15 centimetres, people don't think about it. That's 15 centimetres from there to there. And I don't know whether you can hear that, but that's a care flight helicopter going over at the moment while I'm recording. That doesn't sound good. They come over very low when they're going out to from Canberra to heading out to try and help somebody. So 15 centimetres for garlic and onions spacing. And for potatoes, you can go 30 centimetres apart for plants. Now, obviously, the more you're putting in, the more space you're going to need. So you just have to think about where you're putting them and whether or not you're going to have enough room. Just had to pause it for a second there. That helicopter almost did a low fly buzz over the house. It was so close. I hope whoever it's going to is going to be fine and it's nothing serious. Anyway, the last one that I've got for today is the harvest payoff, which is the good bit. This is the fun part. This is why we grow what we grow, is the harvest. Harvesting is just so satisfying, because especially when you get a big harvest in. And certainly we've had, like I say, we got spuds out of the ground one year, and I think we just kept pulling spuds out. We were like, what the fuck? We couldn't believe how many we got. Same with the garlic bulbs, you know, like I had so many come through that I ended up with this massive plaited string of garlic that I had hanging in the kitchen. I felt like a nonna in her lovely kitchen with all the homegrown garlic. So garlic, watch for the tops. When the lower leaves start to die back and go brown, usually around late spring to early summer, that's when your garlic is ready to pull. Don't wait until the leaves are completely dead. Usually what happens is the garlic will start to droop and sag over, and you'll know that that's when it's time. You got to harvest it when about half the leaves are dead. You don't want them all dead. And the idea to get them out of the ground is just gently loosen the soil around them, and remember to go a little bit wide, because you don't want to pierce your lovely fresh garlic with a fork. Go a little bit wide with a trowel or a fork and just lift, you know, the soil around until you get to a bit of movement. You can gently hold on to the stems, the green stem that's sticking up out of the ground as well, to try and give a bit of traction from the top end where you're digging from the bottom end, and get them out of the ground and dust them off. Now, a couple of tricks there. And I'll talk about drying and that in a sec, but the important bit with garlic is, what was I going to say? Oh, the tops of the garlic. They call them, I think it's scrapes. The flowers that come off the garlic, you can use it for cooking as well. As you can also use the green stem bits. If you're using it for medicinal purposes, they're great as well. But the scrapes, when you cook them up, they're a really strong garlic flavour. So if you keen to try it, grab the tops off them, the little flowery bits, and use those. Onions are almost the same as garlic. When the top starts to flop over, that is your signal. And again, loosen the soil around. Try not to dig into the actual onion. Loosen the soil around the bottom of it and pull them up. Try and keep the green stem on them, and there's a reason for that. Same with the garlic. Keep the green stem on. Don't cut the green stem off, because what you want to do next is dry them out for storage. So both garlic and onions need to be cured before you store them. And the idea is that you lay them out on a single layer of warm, dry, well-ventilated spot out of direct sun. So not blazing sun down on them, but you want it where there's a breezeway and it's light, it's not dark and musty kind of thing. You want them to dry out on the outside. And it's what helps form that hard skin on the outside, which helps them preserve and stay fresh for longer in storage. Now, it can take 2 to 4 weeks to get them to that point, but you'll have outer skins that feel like paper. And when they feel like paper and they're completely dry, that's when it's time to store them. Now, if you can, try plaiting them. I looked it up, I think, on YouTube, and I have to try and do a video, find a video for it. You plait your onion and garlic, and you can hang them in your kitchen and just pull one off every time you need one. It's so cool, and if you have, a lovely rustic kitchen, it will look amazing. But the main thing is that you keep them somewhere cool, not in direct sunlight, and somewhere dry, in a shed, a pantry. You can put them in a mesh bag, but like I say, I rather plait them and hang them up. Garlic will last 6 to 12 months. So that's your year's supply of garlic you've got there. Onions will last 3 to 6 months. And there are summer varieties of onions, so that means that you can alternate between growing a different type of onion in the off season to cover you again for the next 3 to 6 months. It will make a serious dent in your grocery bill because garlic is bloody expensive at the moment, so definitely try it. Now, potatoes, harvesting potatoes. When the tops start to die back, so they'll flower and they'll start to wilt and die back, you dig carefully, and when I say carefully, I mean carefully. If you just jam a pitchfork or a rake or something into the ground to try and uncover things, you will likely damage the potatoes. So like I said with kids, we just put gloves on them and I told them to dig like crazy with their hands. I did loosen up some of the soil around it with a rake and just with a little hand trowel, and that was it. I didn't want to dig in because I didn't want to damage the spuds that we'd worked so hard to grow. So once we got all the spuds out, and it took a lot longer than we thought because there was a lot more there than what we thought, we actually had a couple of those old bread tray racks that, the bakers put all their bread racks on. So it's just a plastic tray, and we spread all of our potatoes out on that. You want them so that they're not touching up against each other. They only need to have a couple of mil between them, but not touching up against each other because you want airflow, because you want them to cure as well. So you store them in a cool, dark and dry place. Don't store them in the fridge, and don't store them in light. Otherwise they'll go green, and green potatoes are actually not very good for you. All fruit and veg has toxins in it. That's just the way it is. But the green in potatoes is particularly toxic. So you definitely don't want that. So spread them out on a thin layer somewhere, on a rack, on a tray, a timber table, whatever you've got, and spread them out so that they're not touching, so that the airflow can go through, and leave them in the dark, and they will be fine, and they will last. I didn't write it down, but they can last, spuds can last 6 months. We had spuds that were still good after 6 months. They start to go a little bit soft, but if you're just cooking them for mash or something like that, it's not going to matter. So those 3 crops are the ones that I think you should try this winter. They're definitely easy ones for beginners because they are very much a set and forget kind of situation. You put a little bit of effort in the beginning, and you'll come back in summer and there'll be a bit of effort to harvest them. But once you've got them all harvested, oh my God, you won't know yourself. And at the end of the day, that's why I kind of switched over, so that we were all talking, like on this podcast, my main aim was ditching the store. I don't want to have to buy things from the supermarket. I know we still do, and we'll never be completely free of the supermarket. Certainly not in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe around the 10-year mark I might be free of them. But there's always going to be some things that I have to buy. The great toilet paper debate that I talk about, we'll always be buying our toilet paper from the supermarket or from somewhere. I'm not going to go out and make toilet paper. I did say to the handy help the other day, maybe we could just get a bidet, use that instead, but then we're using water. So, yeah. But the idea to be able to supply even half a year's worth of garlic, onion and potato for yourself, how good would that feel? I think it'd be awesome. Anyway, if you are just starting out, don't forget I have got lots of things. I've got freebies and stuff on my website. So you can go to www.mojohomestead.net and it should come up with a pop-up thing telling you what's there. But there's also a page called freebies, and you can go to that and have a look. I've got a guide to chicken keeping. I've got a sourdough starter guide. And then I've got some books on Amazon as well, so you can always go and have a look at those. Links for everything will be in the show notes. And I keep saying it, if you have done something amazing in your garden, send me a photo or post it on socials. Let people reward you for what you've done and say good work, but link me in so that I can be your biggest cheerleader, because I love that idea. Anyway, and if you do go to www.mojohomestead.net, can't talk today, you will also get onto my email list. And my email list I send out once a week, and it's got a whole bunch of stuff in it that we cover each week. It's got links to the podcast, links to my blog, but also any kind of products that I'm testing or trialing that I might recommend. Anyway, that's it for this week. Next week is episode 162. And I'm going to go through a whole bunch of May garden jobs. I think sometimes people don't want to go out in the garden as the weather gets colder. So May is probably a good time to get out there, get some jobs done before you get to that really, really, really too cold to do anything out in the garden time. It's just a good kind of last minute cleanup. It's kind of like the reverse of a spring clean. This is an autumn clean, a pre-winter clean. So we'll go through that next week, so don't miss that. And that's it for me for now. I'll talk to you all again next week. Bye for now. Well, that's it for today's episode of Ditch the Store. If you're loving the journey to self-sufficiency, be sure to subscribe. You can also leave a review for us or share this episode with a friend who's ready to break up with their supermarket. If you've got questions or success stories, we'd love to hear about them on the socials. You can also find me at www.mojohomestead.net. Until next time, keep raising, growing and making. And remember, life's too short for store-bought eggs.